Well, thank you for having me on today. I really appreciate it. I think that, you know, the opportunity to come on here is really just to provide education for me. So hopefully we'll be able to give some good education to people to help them make good educated decisions. So I am a certified mortgage planning specialist, certified divorce lender, military housing specialist, every type of certification around lending, pretty much I have, and we can talk more in each of those. But I've been in the business for over 20 years. So I'm super grateful that I've been able to staying it through the ups and downs and now have, a bigger picture to help my clients and especially today's market, right? We're seeing a lot of uncertainties and things that we don't know. But being in it as long as I have, you kind of have a better understanding of at least what to expect or what you think is going to happen. We never have a crystal ball to know exactly what's going to happen. But I'm very data driven. So looking at the stats, the numbers, the patterns, all of them have indicators as to kind of the direction that we're going. And so having that experience and that education and training in all those different areas just allows me to help my clients better.
And you got how many years of experience?
Over 20. It's hard to believe because I was a baby getting into it. And it's funny because you think back at it,
Wow.
I'm like, man, people actually like trusted me when I was, not even 20 years old. But
That says a lot though,
yeah. I mean, I learned the
Very
hard
cool.
way, right? I mean, when I got into mortgage in the industry, I started as a processor. So I didn't start as a loan originator. I started at the bottom, which I think that everybody should because you really got to understand the foundation of it to be able to truly help your clients. And there's not really lines in your team when you can understand each facet of what has to happen. But I started as a processor for a little bit under a year, outfunded all the other processors, went into management. And then, being 21, managing other people that are much older, been in the industry wasn't really what I wanted to do. So then I went on to the loan origination side. And I was on the wholesale side and then went to the retail side and then now on the broker side. So been through all the different angles that you can go through, all the channels, all the positions to make sure that I understand it. And yeah, it's been a journey for sure.
This is where you wanna be? Like, this is what where you're gonna finish your career? Or
Yeah.
do you see yourself going to a different type of, I don't know, mortgage field?
No, I mean,
Something else?
definitely in this field. I'm definitely on the broker side. I mean, there's such a huge difference between retail lending and direct lending. And, as a consumer, you have no idea. But on the broker side, you just have so much autonomy. You can create what you want, and I'm able to provide more for my clients. So there's a lot broader, spectrum of things that I can create that keeps me happy because I'm always wanting to do more and create more for my clients. But I think for sure on the mortgage broker side is where I'll say end my career, although I don't know that it ends, in this arena, but,
Yeah,
I mean, I've had those
yeah.
times where I've considered other things like psychology and therapists, and I really love that kinda stuff. Um, I met my husband in the Sheriff's Academy because when the market crashed in 2008, I thought, "What am I gonna do?" At the time, I was a single mom, and I was like, everyone was panicking. I stayed in mortgage full time during the day, but I went to the academy, Sac County Sheriff's Academy for 10 and a half months at night and thought that I was gonna have to go that direction because I didn't know what was gonna happen. Was picked up, but then that's when they had the huge layoff in 2009 for law enforcement.
Ah,
And so my husband
ah,
was picked up as well, and then same thing. So they're like, "Well, we can have you as an on-call." And I was like, "Well, I have kids. I can't come and work whenever."
work.
Yeah. So I worked as a reserve for Sutter County. So I would go work patrol so many times a month in order to keep my post active so that I could go full time. But my now husband, we were actually battle buddies in the academy, which is how we met. But I thought at that time too, what am I going to do? The market. And I didn't understand it as well as I understand it now. You learn as you grow that everything's patterns. The economy, the government is built on housing, and part of that is mortgages and rates and we're kind of, I mean, it sounds bad, but we are kind of little puppets, right? Within that show of the government,
Yeah.
meaning that, we right now we're dealing with high inflation. And so the Fed's number one goal right now is bring inflation down. That means that they got to get people to quit spending. How do they get people to quit spending? They raise the cost of everything, right? So we've seen the cost of everything go up. And normally, in this, if you haven't been in the business or understand that, you're going to panic. The housing's going to crash. It's all over. It's doom and gloom. And it's fair if you don't understand to think that, and that's
Sure,
how I felt.
absolutely.
That's how I felt in 2008. I was like, I what am I going to do? And, hindsight, I would have dealt with it different. Minus, at least I have my husband now. But yeah, I mean, there's times where
Uh-huh.
you think of like, can I sustain this? Can I, it's a lot of work in the mortgage side. We do a lot. You have to learn a lot. If you're going to be a good mortgage advisor, you're constantly growing, learning, even if, business is down or your rate go up and there's less buyers, you're still doing well over 40 hours a week, right? So you got to love
Sure.
it. You got to be passionate about it. And you really have to enjoy helping people without the final paycheck in mind.
'Cause you're always on, right?
Yeah.
Like, there's no time clock. You're just, always gotta be there for your clients.
If
Am I right?
if you truly care about your clients, yes. I mean, obviously banks, they're Monday through Friday, and there's, certain people you're not going to be able to get a hold of. But for me, especially when we're in this type of market, it's a matter of my client getting that home or not. I'm going to be available. If you need to see like updated numbers or get a pre-approval for my partners, my real estate agents I work with, or for my clients I need to make sure that you're able to be on it quickly so that you have that opportunity. So it may not be life or death, but it's the second next, that's housing. It's where you're going to live. It's a pretty big deal.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Don't wanna be that deciding factor of why they didn't get the house, like, you're the reason, like,
Yeah.
oh god, I wouldn't be able to live with that.
Yeah. I mean, it's stressful. It really is when you care about your clients. It's very stressful. I'm not one to be like, it can wait. I mean, I'm up at 9 o'clock at night locking in rates as soon as we get a contract because I know the market's going to shift. I'm trained in the market and I'm like, all the indicators show that, we're going to have higher rates tomorrow. I'm going to hop on and log you on, even if I'm not available or I'm stopping, I have my laptop with me. It's part of the job. I've learned to love it, knowing that I'm being different than a lot of other people to help. But yeah, it's a lot.
That's very cool. So, can you share your journey from the beginning of your career in 2003, becoming a veteran in the real estate industry with high-level management roles?
Yeah, I mean, we kind of talked about it. I started at the bottom, learning my way up. I think building a foundation in anything that you do is really important. And then I'm just always growing. I mean, I follow all the top economists, I follow all the top real estate, I follow all the top mortgage, I follow all the top coach, like in every different facet too, not just in our industry, but other things that can impact it. I'm really big on I don't want to ever have a tunnel vision of what I'm told from people that are benefiting from a specific sector, right? So even the broader spectrum of other people's opinions that may contradict what people are saying in mortgage and real estate, I want to know what they're saying too, because I want to do the research to understand it so that I can say, yeah, I agree or I don't. And so always looking for where can I learn? Where can I grow? And then every time there's a need, I fill that need. So for instance, with, dealing with the first responders, well, obviously it's in my family. We're a first responder family and I went through it too. There's a huge need. I mean, military alone just don't even understand their benefits. And it's really sad to see how they're taken advantage of in a lot of ways too, because they don't know and, they're not educated on it. And so seeing that need, then I dive in deeper. What can I do? What education can I provide? I'm trying to get into the basis right now to do more education, non-salesy. I'm like, I don't even need to say what company I'm in, what I do. I just want them to have the information because my husband didn't have the information and, he was in the military for 20 years. And so I still had to teach him, even with him being the one that has the benefits and all of that. So every time there's a need, I'll dive in deeper to it. Same with the divorce. I had a lot more clients that were divorcing, especially when, unfortunately with first responders. There's a lot of that. And so I started to get in a position where I'm a coach more than just a mortgage person. So when they come to me, like, ooh, I really need to talk with an attorney to understand this better. I need it. And then I found out, well, there's a lot more avenues that I can get additional information around that. And I joined those, certifications and those. And so I'm on coaching calls every month, constantly learning the things that are updated and how to work with attorneys and structure, all of the orders. And so there's a lot more that goes into it. So I like to learn and then I like to teach. So I'm constantly figuring out ways, how can I help other people? I do a lot of educational videos and really spend time, with my partners educating them too. So it's been quite the
I was gonna
journey, but
say,
I
like,
just
the
love
best way
I
to
love learning. I love being a student and I love being a teacher at the same time.
that's gotta help quite a bit to be able to absorb it too.
Yeah.
And then they say that from what I hear that, like, teaching is, like, the one of the best ways to learn, isn't it? from
For sure. For
what
me
I've heard.
too. Yeah,
That
yeah,
definitely
that's
helps.
I learn the best that way. So even if I'm in a course, I'm creating it as if I'm teaching it to somebody else, because that's how you routine it.
Yeah. Sounds like you're just like really always evolving and willing to pivot, whatever it takes, which is pretty cool. I
Yeah,
love
I mean, we
seeing
heard
that.
that, that word over and over again several years ago, pivot, pivot everywhere. You probably remember. It's like, oh, but
Sure.
I think life is a big pivot, right? It's like every month it's like, oh, every day, you come in and I get on and I follow the market all day long. So I get on and I'm like, oh, what happened overnight? And it's not just our country too. It's every country that has impacts to our country. So you're looking at
Good
everything. It's
point.
like, okay, well, what's my direction today? And it could have changed, from yesterday. So I think our life is a big evaluating and pivoting to what's going to be best for you and the people around you.
Yeah, totally. If you don't, you're gonna get be left behind, basically, in my opinion.
And it doesn't feel good. Like for
Yeah,
me, I especially staying in this career, you got to keep reattaching to your why and what you're doing. And so for me, I always come back to I'm doing it even when I don't want to some days. I'm doing it because this is what I signed up to do. And my integrity to my clients is to constantly be the best that I can to help them. And so if nothing else beyond me, it's about other people and it's easier to stick to kind of that vision.
very nice.
Yeah.
So, what about the certificates as more certified mortgage planner and certified divorce lender? How has it aided you in your profession?
Oh, big time. So, being a certified mortgage planning specialist, CMPS, I came across that many years ago, and I'm so glad that I did because when you get into this business, all lenders are not created equal, right? And I was one of those not equal when I first started because you only know what you know. And I mean, I was a learner and
Sure.
I was resilient and I'd figure it out, and so I was able to move up, but you really have to have the foundations of even understanding mortgage, finance, how do rates work. I mean, if you go ask probably 50% of the lenders, they couldn't even explain to you how rates work. They just say, oh, well, I just go to the rate sheet and this is your rate, because they're just not taught. And I mean, I'm not saying that in a bad way. I'm just saying that all of these education certifications provide you with more information to be, educated to your clients. So going to the CMPS, they teach you not just about mortgage, it's about tax planning. It's about protecting your assets. It's about ROI. It's about interest that you pay versus return. Like for instance, refinances. A loan officer may refinance, which means you have a loan, you pay it off, and you get a new loan. Well, you have some loan officers that I don't want to be mean and call them order takers because I don't mean to put anybody down, but really you tell them what you want, they do the refinance, and that's it. The difference as a certified mortgage planning specialist is I'm looking at everything. I'm not just looking at here's your mortgage. We're also looking at your liabilities. We're looking at your future goals. And then we're also looking at what's the best return on your investment. So if you have a 30-year mortgage, you come to refinance and you've already paid 5 years, do I think it makes sense to put you in another 30-year mortgage? Most of the time, no. Right. So what would
Yeah.
make sense? Well, as a certified mortgage planning specialist, that's what we figure out based on your whole scenario. So we're looking at your liabilities, what interest you're paying where, what assets you have, what are you investing in? Are you maximizing your 401k? Should you take the savings and now put it in some stocks or bonds? And what's your return there? And what's your overall net worth? So it's really kind of like a financial planner without being a financial planner. I always say I'm the bridge from mortgage to a financial planner, that in between of what you need in order to be
Yeah.
in a position to talk with a financial planner. And I work with financial planners. If I have a client that has one and they have assets, I'll get on the phone and talk to them. Like, what do they have? What do you think's best? And let's figure out what's best for the client. So that's how it's a lot different than a loan officer. It's more involved and you're dealing with the bigger picture because it's a long-term relationship. It's not just how can I put you in a loan today? How can I better your life, your financial structure, and ultimately what your long-term goals are?
Very cool.
Yeah.
So, being military certified, could you share how you tailor your services to meet the needs of military families?
Ooh, that's a good question. I mean, first of all, I offer additional incentives. I am very big on, and I always, we're hero families, supporting hero families is kind of my motto. And so I will go above and beyond. I mean, I do for my clients in general, but if I have a first responder, they have different hours, right? So, like, my husband did the night shift. He did like so if you need to talk at 5 a.m., I will make it work for you. If you need it, and a normal client, I probably wouldn't be so flexible, to be honest. But I'm knowing a first responder, I don't want them worrying and stressing on anything else. Also, I know the stress in the family. So it really works differently in the conversations and how you work with those clients. A lot of times they need first you got to figure out who are you dealing with. If there's two people, who's the point of contact,
Mhm.
but also it's just different. You got to understand a first responder in order to know how to respond to them. And so it's completely different in the interaction that you have with them too. Not to mention that it's
Right.
just about integrity, trust, rapport. And so you're building that. And then beyond that, I mean, you're dealing with understanding the true benefits. A lot of people don't even realize that you can have multiple BA loans at the same time. Like there's a lot of basic things. And yeah, I mean, I can't tell you how many times people will come to me and like, oh, I have to sell my home. Well, why? Well, I thought I had to sell it in order to use my BA. No. I mean, I had a client that had three BA loans because
3, huh?
three.
Wow.
He ended up, I mean, he started years ago, right? So I think it was like
Mhm.
Alabama or something. He was stationed and then he got PCS, which means that they transfer you to a new location. So he got PCS to another place, bought another BA loan, and then got PCS here. And so he was able to use his BA three times. He had rental properties on both of those, became rental properties, but still had the great rates and everything from the VA loan. And then was able to use his VA again for a third time.
Wow.
Yeah.
And is it because he was PCS, he was able to do that?
Yep, you can
Oh, okay.
actually
Got it.
yeah, I mean, this is what's crazy. I have clients that have 2 BA loans in the same, like, area. Yeah, I
Okay.
mean, literally, you
Awesome.
can have it in the same city, you can have 2 VA loans. There's calculations and things that come with it. We could figure out what your entitlement is, all that, but I've had, spouses come to me, they're surviving spouses who haven't had their VA, didn't know they even had VA benefits, help them get their VA benefits to use a VA loan. If you're not working with someone that understands how all of that works, you don't even know that they're options, so you lose out on so many of your benefits.
Totally. Yeah. I mean, just by, just consulting with someone
Yeah,
like you
and
could
structuring it. I
make
mean,
all the difference.
I would say first responders and military specifically, um, want they want to invest. They want to have, more real estate. They just don't know how to get there and they need more hand-holding. But they want the knowledge, and they're very, I mean, they're risk tolerant, right? Because of what they do. And so they're able to do it if you can help them. And then I have clients that come back, years later and they're like, you've made me so much money. And I'm like, well, no, you just understood what it took and you did the work, but they didn't even know. It's just completely different way that you deal with them.
It's gotta be like a sense of relief on their part, like, when they realize they're like, "Oh, man." That's like they must have fallen over, they're like, refer everybody they know to you.
Yeah.
Like, "Did you know?" They're like, "No, I had no
And they're
idea."
yeah, they're very loyal. Like if you know what you're doing the right thing. And yeah, they will refer everybody. And I mean, it's a win-win because obviously we're in the business to help people and they know that they're being taken care of. Like you got to be a person that what you say is what you do. And there's times where I may quote something and it ends up being different. I take the loss. My word means everything.
Wow. I'm sure that means it all, like, wow, that's huge.
Yeah.
People know that they can trust you, and the fact that you can empathize with them, like, you've been there, like, you like, that, I'm sure it makes all the difference
Yeah.
because if they can't trust you, they're not gonna ever even, like, give you the time of the day, I bet.
I always say I treat people as if they were my mom or my kid.
That's a good way to
Yeah.
put it. I like that.
Yep.
I'm gonna start using that.
You
So,
just gotta like
I did a little research on you. What's that?
you just gotta like your
I missed
mom.
that.
Be like, "And I like my mom
Oh, I
and
love
my
mom.
kids."
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Let's just
I love my
preface, yeah.
mom. That's true. It goes without saying. Should go without saying at least.
Well, it should, but
Should, but yeah, I know. Depends on how old you are. If you're a teenager, you might hate your parents, but
that's true.
I'm just kidding. Anyway, so I did do a little research on you, and so
Ah,
I see that you've served on the board of your local chamber of commerce and other community boards. And so, how has this involvement impacted your approach to your profession?
yeah. I mean, I'll be honest, I wish I could do more. I mean, every time that I've been able and be parts of chambers and stuff, I always go in with the intention of being able to give and serve. And it's just a lot of dedication and time. And so I find this battle of like, okay, I want to give to the community, but I'm also giving in my work. And so I'm not as active as I would love to be in the Chamber of Commerce and the community. I think we definitely need to be ingrained in the community. I just do it in a different way now. But as far as in business, I just think it helps you connect you to people. Like I think at the end of the day, we just need to be reminded of everybody around us. and our community to know what their needs are to be able to support them. And I think that when you're in your actual community, you don't have those big blinders on as we do in our world. Cause I mean, we could just be working 50 hours a week and not even outside of helping people, not even be, dealing with anyone else. So it keeps you humble, it keeps you grounded, and it keeps you really aware of the needs of the community, which is really our purpose, right? Is to serve the community and understand what they need. So it's helped me a lot in that to be able to stay like, okay, right now, this is where we're at. This is the needs of the community and how can I help support that?
How do you find the time to do all that? I mean, you got a family.
Yeah.
You're hustling. Like
I mean, it's a
you're
lot.
going.
I will say, I mean, I've always been kind of a workaholic. If you ask anyone that knows me, I don't have a lot of friends that I hang out with. I have my core ones that I do just because I found myself torn with like, I want to hang out with you, but I don't have time. My drive, and kind of goes back to the other question that you asked is your journey, to where you are today. I grew up in a home where we didn't have a lot. I didn't have a focus of going to college or even what I was going to do with my life. I got pregnant at 18. And when I got pregnant at 18, it was kind of like a oh factor, right? I was like, okay, I can
Mhm.
barely take care of myself. How am I going to take care of another human? And I mean, I worked at the time. I've always worked. I've worked since I was 15, bought my own car, paid for all my own stuff. So I had a high level of responsibility with that, but had no direction. And I sold cars for a year before I got into mortgage. And that was great because boy, do you learn a lot selling cars, especially when you're selling like Buick GMCs. And back then, 'cause I came from the South, right? I was the only
Yeah.
female salesperson in the front. You'd have the older gentlemen that believe women should not be selling. And
Yeah.
I had a lot
Yeah.
of those conversations, which makes you tough. You're like, I asked him, I'm like, I understand, I'm more than happy to help you. I do understand like about this car. Is there questions that you have? And if I can't answer them, I'm happy to, send you to somebody else. I want to make sure you're taken care of. So you learn how to navigate those type of situations, but ended up getting out of that, getting a mortgage. But my why has always been I want to afford my kids the opportunity to be able to do whatever they want in life, whatever makes them happy. And unfortunately, most of the time it takes being financially secure to be able to offer that to your family. So my direction, and I was terrified getting into mortgage. I mean, believe it or not, I was probably one of the most um, and introverted people that you knew. Like I didn't want,
Really?
yeah. I mean, I was
Wow.
terrified going out and talking to people, asking for the business. Yeah, I was a completely different
I wouldn't
person.
see that. I mean, knowing you like now, like I wouldn't I wouldn't have guessed that.
Yeah. It made me grow, but my why was bigger than the how, right? It was I don't care how I have to do it. I just know I have to do it. Because I'm older. I would literally open my portfolio and it was a picture of my son at the time. And then when I had my daughter, it was a picture of my daughter and my son. And every time I didn't want to do it, I would look at it and be like, this is what I'm doing it for. And I mean, like I said, my son's at UCLA. He's going to be graduating this year, going off to law school. My daughter's at Boise, Idaho, and she's going for nursing. And they picked their direction. It was never, I mean, until they were in like middle school, I was like, you're going to college. Cause in my mindset, that was the opportunity, which I've learned schooling doesn't make,
That's what we were ingrained.
yeah.
Right,
Yeah.
right. At the time, that's what we thought for sure.
And then as I got older and as they got older, I just told them, I said, I just want you to be happy. I don't care how much money you make. I just want you to be able to live within the means that makes you happy. And they both found their passion and what they want to do. And that why is huge to carry you through. And so being connected to like through the journey, being connected to that is what, pushes you forward. But it's also now what helps me with my clients. Like I said, I always think, how is this going to help? If this was my mom or my kid, what would I do for them or what would I advise?
Sounds like some sacrifices. A lot of sacrifices have been made too.
Oh, for sure. I mean,
Not
I'm
just with your family, your clients too.
yeah, yeah. I mean,
Very cool.
it's a lot. I mean, I'm at a point now where I'm like, when my kids left, it's like, what do I do? Like all this free time that because it was always working kids, and they did competitive
Yeah.
soccer, and I mean, I was at almost all of their games, and I was at their activities and helped with their school. I would just be up working at 5 a.m. or 10 p.m. to make up for the times, but I'm super
Wow.
grateful for the career because it allowed me to still be involved and help provide a better foundation for them. And that's what gives me such a strong connection to my clients is I know it can be done. I mean, I came from, like I said, nothing. Like I had no higher education. I had no savings. I literally, it was work, educate, do, work, educate, do. And as I learned new things, I would apply it to my own life, and as I applied it to my own life, then it would scale up. And so now, we have our home, we have rental properties, we have, investments, we have all the things that I teach, I did, so I have a stronger conviction probably than most when dealing with people
Yeah.
because I've been through it in all of the facets and it can be done. So I'm never like, "Oh, you can't do it." No, girl, let's get your credit fixed. You can turn the
Yeah.
road. You can make this work. We can,
Sure.
you can move forward. You gotta be willing to do the work. Are you willing to do the work?
Mhm.
Because if you are, then you can do it. So it's a little
Mhm.
bit different perspective that I have around it now.
I love it. I don't mean to kind of go off track, but can you go? Would you be willing to talk a little bit more about being, homeowner and owning rentals and invest in that type of stuff,
Yeah,
or
like
do
about
you
my
want to
personal
stick to the question?
are you talking about my
Yeah, yeah. If you do, you mind?
No, no, I'm totally fine. So, um, yeah, I mean, I've owned several homes. I mean, I had a home in, for the crash, lost it to foreclosure just like everybody else, and mind you, I was in the business. So, like, when people come to me and are like,
Right.
I had a foreclosure," I'm like, "Girl, we all did." Like, that was everybody was in the boat. We're
Yeah.
not special, no. It was,
Sure.
to make them not feel bad either. We all didn't expect things to happen, and that's why having experience over time in the way I deal with my clients is really a good thing because I can help educate them on do's and don'ts. I think there's a lot of lenders selling things the wrong way, and I say selling because that's what they're doing, not educating and providing the best options. But yeah, I mean, we've been through it many times, and every time that we buy another house, I always think, "This is what my clients go through." So it's super humbling, and it makes me go back and relook at my processes. Is there anything that, like, I experienced or felt that I can help my clients not experience and feel through our process too? So it helps me grow.
It's
Um,
a good way to think about it.
yeah, and I mean, now we're in another season too where we talk about my husband's gonna retire from, law enforcement in 10 years, and do we stay here? Do we move out of state? Like, a lot of those questions that we look at. But we own property in Idaho as well. We went there, I think we've owned 5 years now. We went there on a weekend. We have friends, that are there and went, and we ended up, I wrote myself a pre approval letter and put in offers. I started looking at the properties and I'm like, oh my gosh, I started running numbers and I'm like, the rate of return and how much they've gone up just in the last year was
Yeah.
ridiculous.
You're like,
It
it's a no-brainer,
I wish I would have bought in hindsight, I would have bought like 5, right? Like, you think back, I
right?
would have, like, borrowed, begged, did whatever I needed to do.
You're right. Coulda, shoulda, woulda. It's like,
Yeah,
damn.
and so, I mean, and that we have property there where with our property manager, it's like 1,300 or something a month, and we have it rented for 2,700. So, I mean, you have to take risk to get the reward, but you also need to look at the numbers to make sure that it's going in the direction that you think it is, and that's why, again, experience matters. But, it's been great. I mean, it's a great I think we bought it for 260, the last 268, and it's worth, like, under 5 now. Like, it's so out of state real estate investing is huge. I am a huge advocate of it. I'm licensed in 13 different states because of it. A lot of my clients purchase out of state, have a ton in I mean, Idaho's kinda saturated unless you start moving out, in Oregon too, but I have a lot Tennessee, Texas, North Carolina, South Carolina, trying to think of
Texas is big. Yeah.
a lot of different areas, but if you can afford to purchase out of state, it's great. I know the risk of or the fear is, "But I'm not there."
Yeah.
Get a property manager.
Yeah.
Like, as long as you
Yeah.
have a good
That's a
property manager, our
that's a good
property manager in Idaho is the best thing ever. She's a first responder
yeah.
family too, so we kinda have a little but she's awesome, and we don't worry about anything. She takes care of everything, and it's still cash flows. So as long as you're breaking even, I would say even in this market, that your payment and you have a little bit of a cushion to make sure that you're gonna be fine, then it's not a bad idea. Because when rates do come down, you can always look at, restructuring that loan, and then you'll have cash flow and building appreciation and all that good stuff. Because
Yeah.
even though people are like, "Yeah, but, I start seeing prices are going down a little bit right now," but appreciation's not. Look
Exactly.
at all the statistics. If you go look at all of the appreciation, we're on track for a 6% appreciation still this year.
Oh, yeah. Everybody's got so much equity in their homes and
Yeah.
appreciations. just staying high. I love it,
Yep.
you know?
I mean,
But
we're in the seasonal time, so you might see a little bit of dip in prices. That's normal for the season. But as rates go down,
okay.
prices go up. You have more buyers that are in the market, it drives the price up and, more appreciation.
Do you have any, like, crazy stories maybe or funny stories by chance?
Man, crazy
Um,
stories
you know,
every
I don't
day.
know, in the mortgage or being a landlord?
Landlord, not really. I mean, we're good landlords, so we put a good amount of money into it too, enough to eat it, everything. We have good tenants, so we want to make sure they're taken care of.
Sure.
Not really any bad stories there. I mean, mortgage is always there's always stories. I feel like I on my team we always say we're solution finders. That's what makes us different. Like, what's your unique proposition? Selling proposition. I'm like, we find solutions. Like every situation is different, and I think that being very detailed up front is super important. But man, I mean, I've had them get all the way to closing and now we're getting a divorce. I've had it to where
Ooh,
I mean, you name it in 20
man.
years. It's pretty, I've had it to where someone passed away right before. I've had someone pass away right after. Um, yeah, I mean, just so many different,
You've seen it all, man. That's
yeah,
crazy.
a lot of stories, but nothing like that I could think of that would be like, I think I'm probably just numb to them being something special now that a lot. We deal with a lot, but
It's all good.
that's what we enjoy doing. We love being able to at least be empathetic, understand the situation, not be emotional. Like we're not worried that it's our last paycheck. We're not going to push somebody into a bad decision because we need it to work. We're always going to step back and look at it from a broader perspective. Okay, how does all these plays, who's being impacted and how do we move forward?
I like that.
Yeah.
And you're with Answer? Answer? Is that right?
Answer Home Loan is actually one of the biggest brokers in the area. So I think we're over 200, maybe even loan officers in our brokerage now. Yeah, and so
Do
everyone
you
that doesn't know,
know
I mean, as a broker, you have to do real estate license. I don't do real estate. I have no desire to do real estate, but we have to have all the additional licensing, education. There's so much more that you have to do. But the benefit of it is as a broker, we go directly to the wholesale lender, which means you're getting better pricing because our P&L that we have is just for us. When you go to like a direct lender, their profit and loss, which is their expenses to operate, is taken into account into the rate that you get. So that's why a lot of people are like, I don't understand how a broker's better rate. Well, because you have we'll call it the investor rate, meaning that when there's a pool of money, mortgage-backed securities that's used for mortgages, there's a set rate of return that they want. And then when it gets to market, your rate is dependent upon the lender that you go with and whatever their cost or expenses are, kind of put it as simplified as I can.
so they can make their money.
Right.
Right.
And pay
Got it.
for whatever expenses they have. Well, lonely little me, like I don't have all those expenses that companies run. So you don't have to pay those. So you get better pricing, better interest rates, and our turn times are usually better too. And I get to shop over 80 different lenders for you. So you don't have to do the shopping at no additional cost, which is great.
And you could you're not just California, right? Like you said, you're all over the country, right? That's so cool.
Yeah.
Eh, do you know who, Dan Reynolds is?
Sounds familiar.
Yeah, he just signed with or is with, Answer now. He says you guys are awesome, it's
Oh,
huge, it's amazing,
yeah.
so
Oh,
it's
he's
pretty
with
cool to see.
Answer.
But yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, he's been in the industry, I think, like, 4, maybe 5 years at
Okay.
most,
Yeah.
but yeah, yeah, so he's fairly new compared to you.
If they come into the
You're a
office,
vet,
I
so
usually know them just because I do like being in the office at least half the time. And we work from home part of the time, but I like the energy of being in the office.
yeah, totally. Yeah, I don't know if he goes in. He's a bigger guy. He went to Del Campo. I
Oh,
know Cooper knows him or Chris knows him.
yeah.
But yeah, he played football. But anyway, you probably wouldn't be able to miss him if you saw him. So I'm sure you probably never met him.
I'll have to say hi if I see him. Yeah.
I have to ask if I had him on the podcast before too. He's had just signed or switched over to Answer, so he had like the shirt on.
Ah,
He was
yeah.
all like into it. I was like, good for you, bro.
That's so cute. No, I'm kidding.
I know, right? He's growing up.
No, he'll
uh,
love it.
well, I mean, yeah, yeah. I mean, like he was already only like less than a week in. He was already telling me about how much better it is, like comparative from everything else. So I was like, yeah, it sounds like he'll be there for a while. He's like, oh yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. So you've been with Answer for quite a while.
Answer, no. Answer, I've only been there for over a year, probably just over a year.
Oh, okay,
Yeah. The other company that I
cool.
was with ended up, deciding not to do mortgages anymore. So made the transition, which I knew I made the transition before. You can just kind of tell when things are different. You're like, things aren't looking so great. And unfortunately, that's kind of part of the market is a lot of companies are merging or going out of business. And just because there's no inventory, which means when there's no inventory, you're doing less loans, right? So it's not a matter of like it's a bad market. It's just there's no inventory to sell. So if you don't have loans, how did the companies stay in business if they can't do loans, right? So until we
Yeah.
can get more inventory, which is only going to happen when sellers decide that they're willing to give up their 3% rate, which I mean, it's education too, because there's a lot of people that need to move in the sense that they have a bigger family or they merged families and they keep holding on to that 3%, but they're not taking into
100%.
account the blended rate, which goes into mortgage planning. Like you need to look at all of your interest rates on all of your other debts because everybody that's bought more than a few years ago has equity, right? So a lot of my clients, when I
Sure.
sit down with them, they're like, "We'd love to move, but we just can't afford it." Well, we consolidate all your debt, right? And then we use
Okay.
that from the
Okay.
sale of your home in order to pay off the debt to purchase the new home, and your payment's almost the same, and you get the home that you want. So there's a lot of different structures that you have to consider. So I always tell people it's not about your 3% rate, it's about your blended rate. What is the rate of all of the stuff that you have right now as liabilities plus your mortgage? That's called your blended rate. That's going to be
Okay.
higher than probably what the rate is today.
Got it. Got it. So that's got to be the hardest part is getting past that or whatever. People got under three. Some people
Well,
got under
people just
three,
don't
but I mean,
realize, they just don't understand that. They just think that the 3% is what makes it and it's not. You have to look at the whole picture. And don't get me wrong. There's a lot of people I think should stay in their homes that should not move. And I tell them that. Like, when we do a consultation, I'm like, I mean, here's the direction of this way, and here's the direction of this way, based on what you're telling me and what's important to you. If it were me, I would stay in your home and do X, Y, and Z, whatever that means that based on
sure.
our conversation. So there's many times I tell people not to buy, not to sell, not to refinance. I mean, my goal isn't to get every transaction, it's to get the ones that make sense for the client.
Man, that makes sense though, because it's like people could be like, yeah, they got that 3% mortgage, but all your other bills, you're at like 30% interest rate or something like that.
People
It's
are
like
drowning right
holy
now. I
smokes.
mean, it's one of my biggest concerns. I'm actually getting ready to send out a video to my database too. I have a lot of clients that need to consolidate debt just to be able to afford their bills. The problem is that we have the mindset of we can afford, right? So they can afford it, and they did. They didn't expect inflation to where all of their other expenses are like $400 more a month, right? So they didn't account for that space. So a lot of it isn't even I wouldn't say mismanagement, although I'm not a fan of using credit cards unless it's an emergency and you have a plan to pay it off if you're not doing it every month. But in a lot of cases, it's not just that there was mismanagement, it's kind of the state that we're in. So I'll get those calls and we'll sit down and do a structure. And, a lot of lenders are trying to get people to just refinance. And it doesn't make sense to refinance for most people. So, and the reason, I mean, I'll do a second mortgage for them and we'll consolidate and we'll come up with a plan to protect their equity because we also don't want them to get into the cycle of using it to pay it off, charging it back up, and then now they're in a worse position. And then, a year and a half, they call their real estate agent and say, "Hey, I want to sell." You don't even have enough equity to sell, or you have very minimal that you can't put into another home to make it affordable. So, a lot of things around mortgage planning for, many different loan officers that you would talk to. But I would highly encourage anybody that needs to consolidate debt, make sure you're looking at all the options and make sure you're running the numbers of interest that's being paid, return. How can you reinvest to save money? Like there's so many facets that go into it.
It's not just your mortgage. It's not just one
Yeah.
little thing. And it's your situation of like at least from a real estate agent perspective, it's like people are like, should I buy or sell right now? It's like, well, is it right for you also? Like, okay, yeah, the interest rates are awesome, but is it a good time can you even really like afford it?
Yeah. I mean, in our mortgage planning, I always say you have your affordability payment, what you qualify for, but what's your actual payment that you can afford each month based on your lifestyle? I call it your lifestyle payment.
There you go.
Like they're two different payments. Have you considered what your lifestyle
Exactly.
payment is? And they're like, what do you mean? A lot of people just don't take that into account. So it's looking at all of it. It's not just what I can qualify you for. It's also making sure that you're going to be okay with that. And maybe they are and they need to readjust their lifestyle. That's totally fine. They just need to make sure that they're doing those adjustments now.
Good point.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, hey, I don't want to take too much of your time. Is there anything that we left out? Anything you want to say? You want to, plug, promote,
Yeah,
anything?
I would just say there's so many fears going on with people right now of, like you said, do I buy, do I not? And I think the biggest thing is just not to get so emotional about it. Just reach out to a mortgage advisor such as myself and sit down and look at the numbers. Look at everything together. Like, where am I right now? What do I have? What's coming up in the next 5 years? Education is what's going to cure your fear. The reason that you're fearful is because you just don't know. And as long as you don't know, you're going to have the fear. So, but yet you're already thinking about it. So I'm going to tell you right now, if you're already thinking about it, you're going to consecutively have that wasting energy because it's still in the back of your mind that it's something you want to do. Just make a phone call. That's what we're here for. There's no cost to you. And, at least for me, I can say I'm not going to harass you. We're going to talk about it. If it's something that doesn't fit, I'll check in with you every so often, invite you to my free events that you're going to love. But other than that, I'm not going to push you to do something. I'm just going to provide the education, so maybe you don't buy now, maybe it's in a year, but you have a plan to be able to do that as well. So just make sure you're working with the right team, on the mortgage side and the real estate side. If you feel that you're being pushed and you're not getting the education you need, that's probably a red flag and an indicator that it's not the right fit. And then just, reach out to someone else such as myself and
Good
save.
point. Yes.
If there's a yeah, that would be the other thing. Track your expenses, go to all your memberships and make sure that you're shutting off things that you don't use. I can't tell you how many times I go through it with clients and we'll look at their auto, like, you have like the Amazon auto
Oh,
memberships and stuff. And I'm like,
yeah.
what?
They add up. They add up
And
quick.
you can go in and you can renegotiate all your contracts. So, like your cell phone, your cable. Every year, I would call and renegotiate all of those contracts to save you money, including your insurance. Call your insurance. And if you own a home, call and make sure you're properly insured too, with your coverage. A lot of people buy a home and then 5, 10 years later, they're underinsured. And if something happens, you didn't have enough insurance to replace your home. So, just do those couple of things to make sure you're properly insured and that you're protecting. And it'll make you feel at least a little bit more, not
Peace of
uneasy
mind.
in the market. Yeah.
Cool. Cool. Well, Kristen, thank you so very much for coming on here. I can't thank you enough.
You're so welcome.
You provide a lot of value. I'm sure a lot of people are going to be very interested in hearing this. So I really appreciate it.